It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. We got woken up by our neighbour, and the water from the feeder at the back of us was up to our back gate. Never ever thought that could happen. It's about 25-30 foot drop down to this water. So it didn't come into our house, but a few of our neighbours had about 1.5 foot come into their homes. One lady had to be carried out by the police. It was quite traumatic for a lot of people. We've still got some people on our road who have got furniture upstairs and belongings that they're scared to bring downstairs. And every time we get a flood alert, and there's been several in the last 18 months or so, we're up all night just watching the river levels on the internet to sort of see when we need to start moving things. I've got a plan. We've got things in boxes, in cupboards that can easily be lifted out. We've got nothing that's sentimental downstairs. And we know what furniture we can lift up to put onto stools and things. So yeah, it's been quite a worry, but it's something that I never ever thought would happen to us.
It's 23 acres in North Cardiff. It's uphill in a place where we've already had flooding. It's a soak-away zone. It's cleaning up our air. Now, if you put a hospital, however green they say the hospital will be, if you build a hospital with a car park for 600 plus spaces, if you imagine the amount of concrete that is going to be replacing all of this soak-away zone, regardless of how green they say that hospital will be, it will not soak up the water. Here in Wales, global warming, pollution and habitat loss are having a devastating effect on our wildlife. As a child, I remember seeing hundreds of ladybirds and butterflies. This summer, I saw just one ladybird and very few butterflies. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can change it by challenging Welsh Government to live up to its promises to keep climate change at the front and centre of all its new policies.
Even though we have this kind of world-leading legislation about the future generations and about the environment, communities aren't seeing it apply at a local level, and that's really a huge problem in terms of our attempts in Wales to address the climate crisis and the nature crisis. If the legislation that is being made at the top level is not implemented at local level, how can we really see change, and how can we really mitigate the impacts of climate change on our communities? We know that parts of Cardiff will be underwater by 2050. That's something we need to start addressing right now. We need the councils to recognise the importance of this legislation and start applying it effectively. And unless they do that, then we're really going to see more instances of flooding, we're going to lose more of our green spaces, and we're not going to be able to deal with the impacts of climate change in Cardiff. It's a scary situation, I think, when you think about it too much, because I think places like the Meadows, these kind of big spaces, so 25,000 metres squared worth of green space, which is natural, which has a self-seeding forest, and which sits above a feeder into the River Taff. If we can't even protect these spaces, then what spaces are we going to be protecting with this?
We can't, as a society, develop into a people that only walk in concreted areas and just go around designated parks. We need open green space. We need to make our children familiar with it. We need trees. We need the land that it sits on to act as a natural soak-away for rainwater. We've had flooding, we've got climate change, we've got a climate emergency. The current situation is that they want to concrete this over, and that is their intent, despite a massive amount of evidence that flies in the face of the wiseness of this development. It's an affront to our planet that we just concrete everything over because at the end of the day there's a pound sign attached to the end of it. The very people we elected are deciding to ignore the climate emergency. They say that they understand the climate emergency and they support making changes to try and head this off, but their actions aren't sort of aligning with it.
The most important thing is our planet and looking after it. Society is going to completely break down if we don't look after what we've got. People were in a terrible state because they couldn't get toilet rolls a year ago. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when people haven't got homes to live in because they're flooded. there's not food in the shops. I mean, we're so privileged in this country. There are people that are suffering around the world because of how we've been looking after this planet here.
The original plan was really drawn up sometime in the mid-90s, and now if we look at this in terms of the climate crisis, in terms of the hospital and the medical argument, and in terms of the state of the planet and in terms of the wealth of biodiversity that's in this area, the argument just doesn't stand up for building on this greenfield site, which is designated as scrub, but is actually one of the most diverse places that I've been in since I was a child.
It worries me in the long term what the effect on the environment and the very young children who attend this school will be, and also the people who live in Hollybush. I really worry about all of that.
So we've written numerous letters, we've taken in-depth studies, we've done a lot of research about this site. We've got professional ecologists in to do studies of what the biodiversity is. If we don't stand up as people and talk to each other and stop leaving the decisions to those people who are not even elected but are just people who we don't see. The decisions that have been made by the planners, by the Cardiff Council and by the developers here don't stand up to a logical investigation at all.
We're going to knock down all these trees, and we've talked about building a forest for Wales, but when you look at the forest for Wales, well, here it is, because everywhere you walk you will see acorn saplings and other saplings of other mature trees. We're sleepwalking into an absolute crisis that we cannot undo, and if you want to undo it, you've got to start now. You can't start tomorrow or when your children are around. The very world we're leaving behind for our children, it's incredibly worrying, because children won't remember walking in wild spaces and seeing wildflowers. I'm really sort of disappointed with our politicians, and I want them to start standing up for the environment, start standing up for the communities they represent, and stop kowtowing to big business.
And why do you guys like the meadows?
Because we don't want the animals to get hurt.
I encourage everyone to get involved in their local campaigns, because this campaign wouldn't have been possible without local people just getting involved, turning up, coming to a local Zoom meeting, just taking an hour at the end once a week, and just engaging, writing letters to councillors, to MSs, MPs, and just really trying to make it clear that we need this legislation to apply now and not in 10 years' time.
We can force Welsh Government to step up to the job by electing Green councillors in next May's councillor elections. Other political parties will tell you that the Green Party is too small and will never get into power. Let's look at the truth. In the Senedd elections last May 2021, in North Cardiff, the Green vote share increased by 138%. North Cardiff had the greatest increase of vote share in the whole of Wales. Day by day and week by week, the Green Party in Cardiff is growing. Our Green New Deal offers a just transition for a sustainable and resilient Wales. The pandemic has made us realise how fragile our economy is, but now we also realise what is truly important to us. It is our community, our family, our green spaces, and our ability to trust and depend on our government to make the choices and decisions that are in the best interests of all of our citizens. So what I'm asking you to do is to put your faith in the Green Party and vote for us in the council elections in May 2022. More than that, I'm asking you to join us. By becoming a member or supporter, you can change the face of Welsh politics. Attend our meetings and find out more about who we are and what we believe in. We want to truly represent Cardiff by listening to your voice and speaking up for you. Our climate, our children and our city need the Green Party to step up and represent you.